He's going to put pressure on those 30 nations to ramp up pressure on Russia to really bring peace negotiations as quickly as possible. Of course, the thing overshadowing that is what the US position will be in all of this, but these meetings, these coalition of the willing meetings, which we've been seeing happening basically every couple of weeks now in London, in Paris, now at NATO headquarters here in Brussels, is to prepare for what comes after a peace deal, particularly with the US withdrawing.
The Defence Secretary today is going to urge the coalition of the willing nations to increase pressure on Russia to end its war in Ukraine. Plans to support peace, if that comes, are ramping up. It's John Healey and the French Defence Minister who are going to lead about 30 defence ministers in Brussels today as they discuss operational plans for a multinational peacekeeping force in Ukraine. Covering the meeting is Alex Cadier, the Europe correspondent. Alex, good morning.
Good morning.
Tell us what we're expecting at the meeting today.
Well, we're expecting John Healey, the Defence Secretary, to say that the coalition of the willing nations should not jeopardise peace by forgetting about the war. He's going to put pressure on those 30 nations to ramp up pressure on Russia to really bring peace negotiations as quickly as possible. Of course, the thing overshadowing that is what the US position will be in all of this, but these meetings, these coalition of the willing meetings, which we've been seeing happening basically every couple of weeks now in London, in Paris, now at NATO headquarters here in Brussels, is to prepare for what comes after a peace deal, particularly with the US withdrawing. We know the UK, France and others have committed troops. But clearly these operational plans, we don't have an enormous amount of detail, but are really working through the nitty-gritty detail of what happens after a peace deal is struck.
And the tension here, Alex, is constantly they are preparing for something that they don't know is sure. And quite a lot of the things they need have not been guaranteed by the US, by Russia. You know, Putin saying he just absolutely will not allow NATO troops along the border, or the US causing, I think, quite a lot of disquiet. So how do you prepare for something when you don't know actually if you'll be able to impose the plans that you're making?
With great difficulty, I think, is the answer to that, how they prepare for this. We've seen Tony Radakin, the chief of the defence staff, in Kiev last week with his French counterpart, the military chiefs, going to Ukraine, meeting with the Ukrainians to understand, okay, what might this look like? How will we be able to support the Ukrainian military, which obviously will be the spearhead of any peacekeeping and reassurance force after the peace deal? But there are enormous questions. Where will the front line be? Where will the border be is a huge question. How are you deploying a force that big when we know the British and French militaries, when it comes to troop numbers, have been depleting year on year on year on year for the last 20 years? So these things are incredibly challenging for these military planners. What they are doing, and the point of these meetings is, well, we don't exactly know what it's going to look like, but we have a sense of multiple scenarios, what might be the case. But there is a political problem beyond the military planning, beyond the detail, the logistics. The political problem is that a lot of countries at the moment, most notably Poland, which spends more on defense than anyone else as a percentage of GDP, are not quite ready to commit troops until they know the US would back up those troops should the Russians attack them. And at the moment, the message on that from Washington is pretty blurry.
Yeah, and also from Poland's perspective, I think, please correct me if I'm wrong, they were saying, actually, you know, we need to bolster our own defence in case something happens to us before we commit troops elsewhere.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And we've seen the Polish Ministry of Defense talking about that and saying that at the moment, if Russia were to attack Poland, they could hold the line effectively for 2 weeks without anyone coming to help. Now, that is a message very clearly intended for the United States and for those European allies, saying, look, we're ready, but we're absolutely not doing this alone. And there is a clear sense in Poland that the defense of Central and Eastern Europe as it stands now has to be the priority. Now, other countries have committed logistical support, weaponry, intelligence support, logistical support behind the scenes further on the line. But when it comes to troops, we've seen commitments from the US, from the UK, I should say, from France, from Sweden, and a couple of others. But on the real question of whether or not troops will go, those big countries, Poland, Italy, Germany, still a little bit quiet on exactly whether or not they will send troops, because we don't know what the US is doing.
Yeah. Alex, thank you so much. Alex Cadier, the Europe correspondent, speaking to us there from Brussels. We'll get more detail across the day.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Roy. What are you expecting from today's meeting? First time at NATO.
Hopefully it will be productive.
Any concrete outcomes to expect?
After the meeting.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Ministre. Un mot, s'il vous plaît, avant le début.
Merci beaucoup en tout cas.
Hi, good afternoon. Just shortly. Well, we are hearing today more detailed briefings about that. What is the amount of troops or capabilities, what is needed. But the main focus must be that Ukraine's armed forces are the top one priority now to strengthen up. That's their key security guarantee, that we have to even more strengthen their army and defense industry after the ceasefire. From the Finnish perspective, we think that the United States is a crucial player still in the guaranteeing the lasting security, and that's why we are emphasizing that the United States must be involved in somehow.
Macron was mentioning troops between 10,000 and 25,000 soldiers. Is this something that...
And how many more meetings do you need, sir?
Vous a parlé.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. We believe strongly in transatlantic linkage. We believe that, again, those formats like Rammstein must be sustained, where US is also part of, but there are also other formats where US might not be part of. And I guess fairly enough that in our neighborhood, in European neighborhood, we Europeans should be able also to deal efficiently with aggressor countries, especially taking into account our capacities, our capabilities, our will also to, of course, invest in those challenging times what we are all facing.
But when it comes to any reassurance force, then also we need to know what is it really about. Is it deterrence? Is it the monitoring? Is it the peacekeeping? Also, what is our goal? And that is very much related to whether we have peace or not. And so far, we don't have peace. What to keep?